The most popular card in the game, the Arrows, is used in almost every deck in the game. It is one card you can almost guarantee your opponent will have, so you have to be ready for it at any given moment. You will also need to use your arrows at the perfect moment to gain that elixir advantage over your opponent. In this Clash Royale 101, you will learn how to counter the arrows as well as using your arrows to destroy your opponent and gain that beautiful 3-crown bliss.
That's bullshit! I want some motherfucking chocolate milk!
Welcome to Clash 101. We will be learning about the Arrows card. The Arrows card is in the spell category, able to do direct damage to troops in buildings in its area of effect radius, which is 4. Arrows card is unlockable from the training camp at the beginning of the game. That is why you see it in almost all decks, even beginners, because everyone is able to unlock it at the start of the game. The Arrows is a common card, which all common cards are able to be upgraded to level 12. Starting at level 1, the area damage of the Arrows is 115, which can take out goblins, spear goblins, minions, minion hordes, and all skeletons at the same level in only one hit. And even more troops if your arrow card is higher level than your opponent's troops, such as archers, bomber, and even the new legendary card, the princess. The arrows only cost 3 elixir to deploy, which makes it one of the cheapest counter cards in the game. But knowing when the right time to place down your arrows is very important to gain the most elixir advantage over your opponent, as well as knowing when to place down your units to not fall victim to the arrows card and fall behind on elixir to your opponent. When starting a battle against your opponent, there is about a 50% chance that that person has arrows in his deck. If you have minion horde, goblins, or skeletons in your deck that can fall to just one hit from arrows, it is important to bait out your opponent's arrows as soon as possible. I carry Goblin Barrel in my deck because it is almost a guarantee that if the opponent has arrows in his deck, he will use them against the Goblin Barrel. They cause too much damage to ignore if he decides to not use his arrows. Rather than just using goblins, spear goblins, or minions trying to bait out his arrows, which can be countered with other cards, you can bait out the arrows using your minion horde, but that is not the preferred option because the minion horde costs 5 elixir to deploy, which gives your opponent a 2 elixir advantage since the arrows only cost 3 elixir to counter the minion horde. My opponent here has arrows in his deck. I throw my Goblin Barrel over to his right tower because it does not have any troops around it, so he will have to lay down arrows if he has them. He does, so then I drop my minion horde on top of his push in the left lane because I know he will not have a counter for them. He could have a fireball or zap, but that is less likely for your opponent to carry multiple direct damage cards in their deck. Arrows will always be the most popular card in your opponent's deck. Now that the arrows are out of his deck, I can turn this minion horde into a push. I freeze the tower because I knew he was low on elixir as well, and I was able to do 1,771 damage to his left tower. So just being able to bait out his arrows, I was able to counter his push and turn into a push of my own. Now I will bait his arrows with my minions and counter him with the Goblin Barrel. I counter his troops with the minion hordes as well as pulling his arrows out. Then I drop down my Goblin Barrel and able to take down his tower. The reason I switched was because he started stacking buildings in front of his tower and it was double elixir time, so it was easier to counter the minions. The Goblin Barrel is able to make it to the tower easier, and no card is more effective than the arrows on the Goblin Barrel. The only one comparable is the freeze spell, so I knew the Goblin Barrel was the best way to take down his tower and grab that win. This next battle is to show you how to counter someone using a Golem deck. Minion Horde will always be one of the best troops to counter the Golem, because the minions do not take splash damage from when they explode, and the minions do massive damage. But you can't waste your Minion Horde and have your opponent take them out with arrows. When you find out your opponent has a Golem in his deck, you need to bait out his arrows immediately if he has them in his deck. I was easily able to counter the first strike from the Golem by baiting out his arrows. When I tried it the second time to bait out his arrows, he didn't use his arrows that time. So I had to use my mirror card to mirror the goblin barrel to try and attempt to pull his arrows one more time. He finally takes the bait, and now I'm free to use my minions on his golem and counter his push. He then uses his arrows to take out my spear goblins and minions, and then my goblin barrel was free to take out his tower for another victory. Using the arrows to gain the elixir advantage is easy, but one wrong mistake of using the arrows and your opponent will capitalize and make you pay. Sometimes it is worth taking the tower damage in order to save your arrows for when you get a horde of troops that are countering your troops or attacking your tower. If you see your opponent drop down spear goblins at the beginning of the game, that is not worth the arrows card because the goblins will only do about 300 damage to your tower. But when an untouched minion horde comes after your tower, they can take it down from full health. Now the basic use of the arrows is against the minion horde, but sometimes you will need to use it against skeleton army, goblin barrel, or a horde of spear goblins. And in almost all cases, you will gain an elixir advantage over your opponent. Using your arrows against a crown tower is never the preferred method unless there is only a few more HP left on the crown tower. Because even if your arrows are at max level of 12, your arrows will only do 130 damage to your opponent's crown tower. But if your opponent does have a crown tower that is extremely low on HP, and you do have your arrows card able to be used, but you don't know if your arrows card will do enough damage on the tower to take them out, instead of doing the math, now all you have to do is hold down on the card and it will tell you what damage the card will do to the tower, and hopefully you can take the tower out and win over your opponent. Now I hope you learn how to counter the arrows as well as using them at the correct time. Now go out there, Clash Bros, and get those 3 crown victories and push to legendary. Good luck and hope you enjoyed the video. And now it's time for everybody's favorite game, Stinky Pinky! It's time to play the game Stinky Pinky, a word game called Stinky Pinky. Everybody loves the game Stinky Pinky. It's time to play the game Stinky Pinky, a word game called Stinky Pinky. I'm the best at Stinky Pinky. Everybody loves the game Stinky Pinky. Stinky Pinky is a wordplay game where you describe 2 words that rhyme, but you can't use those words in the description. If I was to give you smelly finger, you would give me Stinky Pinky. Last video Stinky Pinky was Rise Detective, and the answer was Elevator Investigator. And the Clash Pro got the answer correct first was Omar J. Great job, man. You deserve a fish sandwich.
Too early to get a fish sandwich?
Hold your Stinky Pinky high up in the air, Omar. You are today's winner. If you would like to be featured in my next video, all you have to do is be the first person to answer the correct Stinky Pinky in the comments. This video Stinky Pinky will be Tardy Appointment. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to show all your love by smashing the like button. Want to join the Clash Bro family? All you have to do is subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends and clanmates about this channel. Hope you guys have a great day. And don't forget, my Clash Bros, to stay beautiful.
Make it drop, honey.